Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the third episode of our Mentor Masterclass series. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Mr. Herman Ramirez. Now, Herman is one of the very few people who can claim to have been at the birth of the digital revolution. As a bona fide pioneer in the digital, social media, and blockchain spaces, his credentials are second to none. Now, way back in 2013, he founded one of the first blockchain startups in Switzerland. And drawing from this vast experience, he's been a trusted advisor to many entrepreneurs and executives eager to harness the power of marketing in the digital world. Now, in turn, this has led him to establish the Relevance House in 2018 to help blockchain and emerging technology companies build highly successful brands and businesses. Now, if all of this weren't enough, he's also an author, a thought leader, and a sought after speaker at various leading universities and international conferences on topics such as digital strategies, social media, blockchain, marketing, digital transformation, the future of work, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Arman, thank you very much for your time and pleasure to have you with us.
Pleasure for having me. Thank you.
Great. So, Herman, I just gave a very brief intro into what you've done so far. I'd love it if you could sort of expand into your background and your professional journey so far.
Well, basically, probably what characterizes me is an endless curiosity. I started very early, fascinated by technology and how technology changes behavior and changes humanity. So very early in my career, in mid of the 90s, I discovered the internet. Well, I didn't discover it, of course. I discovered it for myself. I started doing internet and e-commerce projects very early on before Google was founded, basically. And what fascinates me about technology is not how technology works. I've always said I'm not smart enough to understand how technology works, but actually how technology impacts behavior. How technology changes our way of seeing things as users, as consumers, as investors, as citizens, as pretty much everything. And technology over the last 25 years, since I've been having the privilege of going on this journey, has evolved rapidly, and the impact it has had on our lives and on businesses and on brands and how we inform ourselves, how we interact with each other, how we consume information, how we take purchase decisions, and everything has been staggering. And basically the history of my life is a fascination for the next wave of technology and how it evolves and how it impacts human behavior. And from a branding and marketing point of view, which is the core of what drives me professionally, how to develop strategies that are able to not only cope with those changes, but actually come up with successful strategies and successful businesses based on those technologies. And what originally in the beginning was internet and e-commerce as disruptive technologies, then later on became mobile and social media. And today we're seeing another wave of technological advancements around blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, fintech, and many other new technologies. So I'm always trying to explore what's going to be coming next and put it into digestible words for business and people.
So, Herman, what would you say are the key trends driving the state change into driving the digital transformation in marketing, branding, and communications over the past few years?
When it comes to the main trends around digitalization, the first thing that I always try to put an emphasis on is that a lot of people get it wrong. That's at least my view. A lot of people think that digital transformation is mostly driven by technology, and it isn't. Technology, and this is a very important message in my view to people dealing with this, technology is a catalyzer for change. Technology enables things, but technology isn't the key behind understanding how the world is changing due to digital transformation. What we're experiencing is much more, like I said originally, which is what fascinates me, is the impact of technology on human behavior. So what we're witnessing when it comes to digital transformation is not technological transformation, but I like to refer to it as digitally induced or technologically induced human transformation. Humanity is evolving at very rapid speed, and the channels we consume, the way we inform ourselves, the way we interact with each other, the way business is structured, all of those things are what is actually changing. So technology is just the driver for the change, and companies that might put the emphasis too much on technology and forget the user or the behavioral implications of technology will fail when conducting digital transformation programs. And what we're actually starting to see, which is very exciting in my view, is an even more profound transformation, because through the way digital technologies are influencing humanity, we're also starting to see a shift in values, a shift not only in behaviors and things we do, but even how we think and how we feel about things. And that's something that in the years to come will very strongly shape the way marketing and branding are basically going to be conducted. So the implications for marketing and branding are not to take the television ad that you used to put in front of television when television was the key medium and just put it on YouTube and then try to pay people to watch that ad. If that is, that's not marketing anymore that has an impact. People have gone away from television and from other media because of options that they've gotten. They're not, adapting the same technology, adapting the same marketing messages and advertising approaches that you had in the past into online channels isn't the solution for digital marketing. Bad marketing digitalized is just bad digital marketing. Bad branding on the digital channel is bad digital branding. But the solution is actually to be relevant. And that is the real answer and the real implication for marketeers. I tend to say that even paid media needs to be earned. You can buy people's attention, but that is not going to be enough for your brand or your business to be successful. And it's more than just using new channels. It's actually adapting to this new change in people's behaviors and ways of thinking that will drive the success for marketing and branding in the digital age.
True. And just to highlight on a couple of points which you brought up, you spoke about how it's more than technology evolving that are driving the trends. It's actually the change in human behavior and the evolution that we're seeing right now, which is actually being enabled by technology. So that was a really keen observation that you made. And now coming more to what's happening right now and how you spoke about how the consumers' tastes and preferences and their value systems are changing right now. So with the current situation that we're facing with the pandemic all over the world, I'm sure you would have come across many businesses who traditionally don't really have an online presence, who are really forced to come online right now to just keep their businesses afloat and grow them. So for these sort of business owners, what would you advise them for someone who is a first-time user who's just trying to adopt online digital media? How would you suggest that they go about this process?
Well, first of all, needless to say that the current pandemic is a terrible thing that is affecting humanity as a whole. And I, of course, hope that we will soon come together and find a solution for it. It's also testing the resilience and the creativity of the human race to a certain extent. Now, but moving on to your question, what this pandemic is indeed doing is accelerating a change that has been necessary for many businesses for many, many years. So we've had pretty much, as I was describing earlier, we've had over 25 years to adapt and to develop new solutions, new experiences, and leverage these channels. And many companies have been sleeping. Now, if we want to try and find positive things in this pandemic, what we could say definitely in the context of digitalization is that this current pandemic is a wake-up call for businesses that have neglected these these channels and are now forcing them to, in an accelerated mode, try to find solutions and ways to utilize digital technologies to basically do the homework and become successful. So the key to succeeding in these digital efforts in the context of not only in the current pandemic, but probably more than ever, is for companies focusing less on products and services like they've been doing in the past, but through the integration and the convergence of digital channels and digital experiences to actually try to think in experiences. So the key to the success for companies now forcing themselves to adapt new technologies is to go away from their core focus on production, on products and services, and go into designing experiences that, first of all, combine all the different touch points and all the different channels into one single experience, to understand the needs of their target groups and the habits of their target groups, and to design experiences that are rewarding for their target groups. The technology is there, right? The biggest challenge when it comes to transformation program is, as mentioned, is not necessarily the technology. The biggest challenge is the mindset. So companies and brands now need more than ever to find not only a customer-centric mindset, but actually a truly customer-driven mindset and an outside-in perspective. So stop selling products, stop selling your services, and start creating and delivering experiences. And when it comes to your messages, stop talking about yourself and start creating relevant stories for your target group, for the people that you are trying to reach. So don't talk to me about yourself, talk to me about myself, about me as a target group. So delivering experiences and creating relevant stories that include all the different channels, that is the key to the success in this current situation that is now being accelerated due to the pandemic.
And there's a really nice quote that I like around marketing and branding, in which it goes like, you don't build a brand or you don't have your marketing efforts to build your own brand, but your brand is automatically an authentic reflection of who you are, and that is what your customers sort of will resonate with, and that is what is going to drive more engagement with your brand. So I think that sort of fits into what you mentioned right now. So just leading on from that, like we spoke about first-time business owners coming online now. Now we're also looking at a lot of existing organizations who are online, but who now have to deal with limited budgets, and a lot of their marketing budgets have gone cut right now. So what would you suggest to these companies, and how do you think that they would best or most efficiently utilize their marketing efforts in this situation?
Mm-hmm. First of all, in that context, I would like to break the myth that good marketing is a matter of money. In the past, when we had a few limited amount of television stations, and there was pretty much, especially in the business to consumer segment, there was a strong correlation between how much money you had, how much share of voice you had in the market, and what your market share became. Those were the times where media and companies controlling the flow of communication in the channels were the ones who had the voice. Those times are over, despite a number of companies are still kind of behaving like it wasn't the case. Good marketing, I've been saying this for a long time, good marketing is not a matter of money, it's a matter of relevance. So if you understand your target, you create content and stories that transport your competence, your relevance, your stories, and aspects of whatever it is that you're trying to do in your business that are important and relevant for people. Those are stories that will travel, and people will tell them to each other. And I'm not talking about viral marketing or trying to be funny and creating videos that are entertaining and travel. That might help too, depending on who and what, but that is not the core. The core is really about trying to find ways to translate your brand into a relevant story, and ideally find ways to involve your target. if you manage to create a community of interested people and make them carry your torch, not because you want it, right? Not because it's good for your business, but because you find reasons for them to want it, for them to be involved. And you know, I ask that to founders very often when it comes to communicating. There is a tendency for entrepreneurs and young companies to talk a lot about themselves. They talk about, you know, we've reached this milestone. We are going to be on that conference. We're launching this new beta product. We have raised this much funding, and that's all great and peachy for people that really are involved with your business and really like you, right? But very oftentimes, these companies forget to talk about why you should be interested in what I have to say. How is the market evolving? Where is there a need for your product? Or like I ask very often to founders, when was the last time that you had something so interesting, so surprising, so entertaining, so inspiring to say that people would speak about it among themselves, even when you were not in the room? So rather than trying to find cheap ways to get your message across, try to find what is the message that my community, my target group would find so interesting, so inspiring, so relevant, that they will talk about it even when you're not in the room. And that becomes your marketing.
Great. And just to sort of needle into a particular aspect that you've spoken about so far, which is about staying relevant. Now, how do you think a brand, whether it's a big brand or a small up and coming startup, how do you think such a brand can really cultivate or understand who their actual customer is? And how do you think they can really position themselves correctly in the market?
Well, actually, in an ideal situation, a brand or a product should emerge from the needs of a particular target group. So if you start your company because you have a product and an idea, and then you go out there and try to find someone who could need it or use it, then you're doing it wrong from the get-go. So the solution for starting a successful business is actually identifying a possible need or identifying an opportunity. It doesn't have to be a problem that you solve. It might be an opportunity that you encounter that can be generated within a particular target group. So then the relevance for your offering comes at the core, at how you define the mission of your company. Then the rest is as simple as just creating an amazing product or solution to actually tackle that opportunity or solve that problem. But if you found, and this is something that went quite wrong at the very beginning of the whole blockchain revolution, and we saw the consequences of that, where you had a ton of founders that were still, and I was making a joke about this the other day, I've encountered an incredible amount of founders that are still today looking for a problem for their blockchain solution, right? If you need to find a problem and find a target group to adopt a relevance for your solution, for your product, then you're doing it upside down, and you are likely to fail.
So always begin with validating the actual problem that you are solving before you really dive deep into the solution. So
absolutely, you have to start with a particular person in mind that will later be interested in what it is you have to say. If you start with something that you think is interesting and then try to look for people who agree with you, you're not going to be as successful.
Sure, absolutely. Now, Herman, so just to dive in a little more into the marketing side of it, like we're talking about right now. So how does a brand or a company develop a winning digital and social media strategy?
Mm-hmm. The key, as we said earlier, the key starts with thinking in experiences and to being customer driven, understanding the needs of the target. Now, once you come to develop the actual communications and strategy behind your digital channels and your social media activities and so on, what I would recommend, or what I usually try to say, is to try to think of what I call the digital marketing triumvirate. So think of understanding the needs in regards to content, in regards to channels, and in regards to interaction. So you identify, the way you go about it is you identify what are your business goals, and what are the target groups that will help you reaching those business goals. And based on that target group, you identify specifically what type of content and stories will they be interested in at what stage of their experience, thinking always of experiences, what channels are they going to be using along that experience, and what type of interaction and expectations will they have towards you alongside those experiences. And based on those, you end up defining not a specific strategy for social media or for your website or anything, but it all needs to be part of one single main experience that starts with the needs of the target group in regards to content, interaction or engagement and channels, and then designs an experience that flows alongside how you're trying to get them from they've never heard about you to they are not only customers, but also even fans and or endorsers of your solution. So think of those three different pillars and build your strategy around those different pillars. And basically try to find ways to not use all the channels to tell the same story. That's another typical mistake that companies do. Is like, okay, we got LinkedIn, we got Twitter, we got Facebook, we got Instagram. So now we have something exciting to say about ourselves. We're launching our new beta product. So let's post it on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Insta, and it doesn't really, I'm talking about myself and I'm saying exactly the same on all the channels. That is not delivering a proper experience. That is not maximizing the use and the strategic need for each of the different channels that you have. And it's certainly not catering to the different needs and mindsets that people have when they are using these channels. So it's basically about turning it upside down, not talking about yourself, but talking about the needs of the target and trying to think into that experience, chunk into the different channels across that experience that you're trying to design and to define. That is how you build a winning strategy for digital communications and social media.
Very interesting. So I really like the point you mentioned about how we need to focus on separate strategies for each of these different channels, and we can't. It doesn't follow a one fit for all approach. So delving into that now, Herman. So how do you think a business can choose which social media platforms to channel for their needs? And do you think, like we just discussed now, do you think they should follow a more horizontal approach in which they do put out different types of content on each platform, but really focus on one particular platform? Or do you think it should be a more vertical approach in which they know that, okay, LinkedIn is what works for me, so I'm just going to go on LinkedIn? Or do you think it should be more horizontal?
It's a great question. It will depend very much on the type of business and the goals you're trying to achieve. What I usually say is one channel, one target, one job, right? And you might have different goals to achieve and different target groups, and therefore you might use different channels to reach those goals or address those targets. That will depend on your business. But if you use all the channels to do the same job, then it's going to be a waste of resources, and it's not going to be as successful. Whether LinkedIn is your key channel, or whether you decide LinkedIn is your key channel, but you want to flank it with thought leadership content on, for example, on Twitter, or whether it might make sense to bring in aspects of visual storytelling that transport what you're trying to reach through a channel like Instagram, or maybe videos are an excellent way to get across your message, and you have the capabilities to produce videos, and you do want to have YouTube as a repository for that and amplify that through the different channels. So it really depends what it is that you're trying to achieve. But a key message there, as mentioned, is one channel, one target, one job. And this is where a lot of companies get it upside down, because as mentioned earlier, they would put the same stuff on every single channel, right? Just because we have it. That is not how you do it. And also something that I encounter very often, and I call them the Swiss Army knife of social media experiences, where you basically, you go on a Facebook or on a LinkedIn or whatever channel, and you see information about the product and the product roadmap. Then you see information about new members of the team and how the company is growing. Then you see a market trend report analysis that might be interesting for the market that you are talking about. Then you talk about an event that you're going to be attending. Then you share some pictures of the Christmas party that you just did. And this is basically, there is no clear message. Oh, and by the way, we're hiring. Yeah, and that, all of a sudden you put there also your hiring needs and the people that you're trying to bring into your team. So what is the specific role of that channel? And what is the specific target? Are you targeting people that you want to hire to come onto your company? Are you targeting investors that want to be following your milestones? Are you targeting interested customers that might be following your technological roadmap or meeting with you on an event or a conference? Who are you targeting? And what is exactly your message? Those are things that you want to clarify and set those for different channels. You might, if you need, you might create different channels, for example, different Twitter handles for hiring, right? It's like, we are hiring at this company XYZ, and one for investors, same as you would have eventually different landing pages. So not try to clutter everything into all the different channels, but one channel, one target, one job.
Brilliant. And just to sort of go back a little bit into what we discussed earlier about branding. Now, this is also sort of incorporated into the social media question, but how do you think, how would a business define as what would you define as the essence of branding for any company? And how do you think one can go about in developing their branding efforts in today's digital age?
A great question. I think we're going to be seeing a resurgence of the importance of branding, well done, in the years to come. The essence of branding, in my view, is a proper answer to the question, why does the world need my stuff? Rather than trying, very oftentimes companies try to be everything to everybody, but developing a proper brand implies to be picky about the choices. You have identified a target group, as we said earlier, that is essential. You have a target group and you have a particular need that you're trying to answer, but there are many ways you can try and go about it. We sometimes encounter, when we do work around brands, we sometimes encounter companies that's the danger with PowerPoint. PowerPoint tolerates everything. You can put everything on a PowerPoint, right? We are all about innovation and reliability. No, you're not. You cannot be innovative and reliable at the same time, because if you're truly innovative, it means you're going to break stuff and you're going to fail at things, right? So that's not reliable. And if you're reliable, that means that you might not try all sorts of new things out because you want to stick to being reliable. None of those are wrong, but you have to choose. What is it that you really want to be? What are the specific needs that you are catering to? And you cannot cater to the need of people having fun and at the same time being very secure, or being an expert in something and very specialist and technical, and at the same time being optimistic and creating a fun community. That you have to be picky about those things. A brand is a promise. And what you need to do if you want to build a relevant brand is actually to think and answer the question, why does the world need my stuff? And try to develop a relevant brand promise. There is one trick that I'm happy to share with your audience that I oftentimes use. There is a great book that was written by one of the advertising heroes of our times, that referred to love brands. I'm not sure if you've heard about the term love brands. Companies want to build love brands. Companies want their target group to love their brands. But the irony is that love is a very strong feeling. Love is a very strong feeling, and if you paint a curve of extremes, you go from love all the way to hate, and in the middle you have something like, yeah, I like you a little, or I dislike you a little, and of course there is entire indifference. Companies want the target group to love their brand and the rest of the world to accept it or be ignorant of it. That's not possible. The true way to create love needs to be to be open to embrace hate. So next time you're trying to create a love brand, you want people to love your brand, then sit down and think, what do I need to do for my target group to hate my brand? And then whatever it is that you write it down, and whatever it is that you write down, turn it upside down and do the exact opposite, right? If you want to generate love, you need to be able to create hate, and hate might be oftentimes easier to find reasons to than love. So that can be an interesting thinking exercise to come up with the proper brand positioning.
So key point here is no matter what it is, your brand should elicit a strong emotion in your consumers, and it should never be indifference. It should elicit a really strong emotional response. So
Yes, sir.
going ahead to my next question, Herman. So we spoke a lot about marketing and branding so far, and also we focused on social media marketing as well. Now, we're also seeing a lot of new marketing channels, such as podcasting, for one, which is really taking a huge leap over the past few years. And we're seeing some of the top podcasts getting like hundreds of millions of downloads a month, which is more than many of the traditional news networks. So, the fact that these podcasts have such a wide audience and such a wide reach, do you see this as an evolving channel for marketers to tap into? And how do you think marketers should really tap into this channel?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. Podcasts are relevant and are here to stay. However, something that we have a tendency to do in marketing very oftentimes, and I consider a strategic mistake, is to run behind the next big thing, on the next hot thing. It's not that long ago that we all remember that having a blog became super popular, right? And everyone, and WordPress emerged as a platform that did an amazing job in allowing people to open a blog very easily and write a blog. And at the beginning, it was a huge trend. And somehow you were nobody if you didn't have a blog, right? Then it happened with social media channels. Not much later, and everybody needed to be on Facebook, everybody needed to be, and it happened with YouTube and video content. Video content was hyped terribly, and a lot of companies spent a lot of money to create capabilities of producing content and launching their video channels on YouTube and whatever. And we're experiencing something similar with podcasts. There is a place and there is a time, there is a topic, and there is a style and a message that can be conveyed through podcasts that will be very successful. However, the key should not be everybody's on YouTube, so let me open a YouTube channel. Now everybody's doing podcasts, so I need to have a podcast. The key behind the success is really to think, to what extent is it going to be relevant? Do I have something interesting to say in a podcast that will engage the audience? Can my message and my story be conveyed through voice in a proper way? And will it make sense? Will I have something relevant to say regularly? And what are my topics going to be about? Just the fact that it is trendy, just the fact that it is possible, doesn't make it meaningful for you. I always say not everything that makes sense is possible, but a lot of things that are possible don't make sense. So podcasts are a great tool. Podcasts can and will be utilized by many brands successfully, but just because it's the next hot, shiny thing on marketing, don't get trapped by it. It needs to fit your strategy, your narrative, your brand, your style, your message. And if it does, then for God's sake, go ahead and open up a podcast and best of luck with it.
So the key takeaway here is really know that if the podcast is relevant for you and your brand, and if you think you can achieve the objectives that you're setting out to buy a podcast, and not just to be another one amongst the crowd. So you really have to make sure that you're relevant, which is a keyword here, and make sure that it actually adds value to what you're trying to achieve. So now moving into the next point. So Harman, so in your mind, what is the future of marketing and branding? And with the evolution of technology right now, where do you see this leading in the next 5 to 10 years?
Great question. The future of branding and marketing, especially in the context of technology. I think we're going to be seeing two different key trends, or two different key directions. And just to say it up front, none of them are right or wrong. Both of them combined are probably the answer for successful branding and marketing in the future. On the one side, we have the evolution of technology and how it's impacting marketing. We are seeing analytics on the rise. We're seeing AI, or to be honest, it's not truly AI, it's more machine learning, which can be very powerful. Programmatic advertising. Marketing is becoming extremely measurable, very technical, and very granular. Right now, you had one TV station with one TV ad that you put in front of the entire population, right? And today you can advertise to the target group of one. You can advertise and deliver marketing messages, not only awareness generating messages, but also through retargeting or through direct marketing. A lot of people say email is dead, but email is still a very successful marketing tool if used properly. So the use of technology and the ability that technology gives us to understand the target group and their habits, and to provide them with advertising that is relevant to each of them, and that therefore creates an impact. Driven by technology, driven by machine learning, driven by different technological tools, that is beautiful. And that is one of the key trends that we will see sticking in the future and growing in the future. So the marketing as a discipline purely based on emotions and creativity and brainstormings and fancy ads, like some 80s or whatever. This series called Madman, I believe, and so on. That is gone, right? Marketing today is extremely technical. And it's very close to IT, much more so than some marketeers might even like. But that is one of the key trends. So if you want to be a successful marketeer in the future, you need to understand, you need to embrace technology, you need to embrace being measured for everything you do. And not only that, but actually you need to have the curiosity and the ambition yourself to measure everything you do. And you need to have that discipline, and that is one key area. Learn those tools, practice with them, and put them to work for your brand. The second trend, which is very beautiful and entirely different, is what I call the human side of marketing and branding, where I think, are going to start seeing a resurgence of the importance of branding, of emotional connections, of the understanding of human behavior, which is going to be much closer to psychology than to pure creativity, if you want. I think we're going to see a resurgence of branding, and I'm not talking about brand design and design in general. I'm talking about the understanding of human needs, the understanding of human behavior, and defining purposes for brands. Just simply being the logo on a product is no longer, it's never been true branding, but it's not what I refer to by branding, but it's really understanding the relevance of your message and how to establish and build a connection with your target group. What human profound needs you are satisfying beyond the pure rational usage needs behind your product, and try to find ways to create stories that connect with those target groups. And this is a very much more softer, much more human, psychological base of marketing, which I believe is going to see a resurgence. And the ideal combination of a future marketeer that is brutally successful will be the ability to understand technology and use technology when it's needed, and the ability to understand human psychology and establish connections and emotions on a human side when that is needed.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. So one of the things that I truly believe is that to be a really successful marketer, you have to have a really keen understanding of how the human mind works. and about human psychology, because when you approach this, even from a perspective of first principles, you have to look at really why people do what they do. And if you're able to understand that, and especially about your customers, and I think that's when your marketing efforts combined with the more data driven approach that we are taking right now, I feel like that combination, like you mentioned, is absolutely going to be the way forward. So I mean, you've given us a lot of great insights, Harman, over the past 40 minutes. Now, what would you say as a final note to any entrepreneurs or marketers who are watching this, and what advice would you give them?
Well, to entrepreneurs and to marketers, I would give different advice. To marketers, I would advise to try to permanently learn and develop your skills in the directions that we said before. Marketing is about creating an impact. And in order to create an impact, you need to understand all those tools and to try to develop the strategic skills and acumen to bring all the different challenges together. The job of a marketeer will become increasingly difficult. As mentioned just a second ago, that combination of profound understanding of technology and the human side of it is, while still being creative and structured and so on, is really a challenge. So never stop learning, never stop being curious, try things out, and try to constantly develop yourself, because the job of a marketeer will be developing faster and faster every day. To entrepreneurs, I would give the advice I always give to founders: don't do it. Don't do it. If you can see a world in which you do not start a company, please don't do it. For a simple reason: it is an incredibly hard job. I have the privilege, and I can say it now, of building 6 different companies throughout my career, and I've accompanied dozens of founders on their paths. It is a very rocky, cold, rainy path that is not pleasant. If you've never done it before, you probably are underestimating the efforts and the toll that you will have to pay to do it. So if you can live alive without founding a company, I always say, don't do it. I couldn't, right? And I totally understand and embrace the fact that many of you might not. If you can, don't do it. If you do, please, whatever it is that you're planning, double the time that you think it's going to take you, double the pain that you think it's going to give to you, and basically double the cost that you think you're going to need. And if it still makes sense, then fingers crossed and go ahead.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Herman. So I think you've given us a lot of value over the past 40 minutes, and I hope everyone watching this also finds some value in this. So we're going to be uploading the entire video on all our social media platforms. So if anyone wasn't able to check it out right now, you can watch it anytime you're free. So, and also do check out the relevancehouse.com, which is Herman's website, and you can also get in touch with him there. And if anyone wants to book a mentoring session with Herman, the link will be provided in the description of the video, and you can go to Gilda360. Great. So, Herman, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and for giving us this amount of information.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time, your interest, and see you out there. Best of luck to everybody.
Take care.
Bye.